Institutional caution transformed into calibrated curiosity. The division maintained necessary safety boundaries while embracing exploration. Researchers learned to assess risks dynamically, rather than following fixed protocols. This balance allowed innovation while preventing recklessness. The new approach produced better science without sacrificing ethical standards. It represented maturity rather than abandonment of caution principles. The entire galactic scientific approach shifted toward human methods. Other research divisions adopted modified versions of the engagement protocols. Cross-species studies became standard rather than exceptional. The communication framework developed on Nexus 9 spread across multiple disciplines. This transformation affected how the galaxy approached unknown environments and species. Scientific progress accelerated through this more engaged methodology. The institutional shift demonstrated that even centuries-old protocols could evolve when evidence demanded change. The research division became more effective and adaptive through this restructuring. Their work gained practical value beyond theoretical knowledge. This improvement in scientific methodology would influence galactic development for centuries to come. The human approach had successfully integrated with traditional methods to produce superior results. Human interaction with danger followed a predictable four-part rhythm that made sense only in hindsight. They recognized the threat, acknowledged its nature, studied its patterns, then sought mutual understanding. This systematic approach appeared suicidal to outside observers during initial implementation. Experienced xenobiologists watched in disbelief as humans walked toward known killers instead of maintaining safe distance. Their actions defied centuries of established safety protocols and survival logic. The apparent recklessness triggered multiple emergency alerts during early observation periods. Statistical analysis revealed the counterintuitive truth behind their methods. Injury rates showed progressive improvement despite increasing risk exposure. Initial higher incident rates gave way to dramatically improved safety metrics within weeks. Each controlled failure produced valuable data that enhanced operational protocols. The humans treated every close call as a learning opportunity, rather than a reason for retreat. Their adaptation speed accelerated through this iterative improvement process. What appeared chaotic actually followed precise calculation and careful planning. The reciprocity principle yielded measurable benefits across all interacting species. Predators gained reliable supplemental food sources that reduced their hunting energy expenditure. They received protection from larger territorial threats through human early warning systems. Their cub survival rates improved significantly with reduced exposure to dangerous hunts. The hunting families established more stable territories with human assistance. This cooperation allowed them to thrive rather than merely survive in the competitive ecosystem. Human gains were equally substantial, though different in nature. They acquired deep environmental knowledge through direct experience rather than remote observation. Security improved through predator alliance networks that deterred other threats. Hunting partnerships increased resource acquisition efficiency dramatically. The shared territory became a protected zone where both species operated with reduced danger. Casualty rates dropped to near zero within the cooperation framework. This mutual benefit structure created stability, where conflict had previously dominated. Cooperation proved more advantageous than predation or avoidance across multiple metrics. Energy conservation improved for both species through coordinated efforts. Knowledge sharing enhanced survival strategies beyond individual capabilities. The relationship created security buffers against environmental fluctuations and external threats. This ecological rewiring represented a fundamental shift in death world dynamics. Species that should have been in constant conflict instead became interdependent partners. This approach became humanity's signature operational method across multiple environments. They applied the same principle to plant toxins, geological hazards, and even atmospheric conditions. Each dangerous element became a potential partner rather than a permanent threat. Their methods transformed hostile environments into manageable landscapes through systematic engagement. The reciprocity principle proved scalable from individual encounters to ecosystem-wide applications. The observers documented this transformation with growing professional respect. Their initial concerns about recklessness gave way to appreciation for calculated risk management. Human teams maintained clear safety boundaries while pushing exploration limits. They knew exactly when to withdraw and when to push forward, based on accumulated experience. This balanced approach yielded better results than either extreme caution or true recklessness. This fundamental rewiring of ecological relationships changed how the galaxy approached dangerous environments. The old model of isolation and avoidance gave way to engaged management. Species learned they could transform threats into assets through careful interaction. The reciprocity principle became standard doctrine for New World colonization. It represented a mature approach to environmental challenges that balanced respect with curiosity. Humanity's greatest contribution wasn't technology or strength, but this operational philosophy. They demonstrated that some dangers contain hidden opportunities when approached correctly. Their methods required courage but not foolishness, curiosity but not recklessness. The approach that began with greeting tiger cubs eventually transformed galactic expansion protocols. It proved that sometimes the best way to handle a threat is to understand it well enough to make it an ally. The observers watched their prediction models fail in real time. Their systems had forecast human extinction with 97% confidence. The evidence streaming from Nexus 9 showed the opposite outcome. Humans weren't just surviving, they were thriving through methods that defied all established protocols. This created growing cognitive dissonance among the research team. Their training emphasized distance and non-interference as absolute principles. Every protocol, every procedure, every safety measure was built around cautious observation. The human approach violated every rule they had spent centuries developing. Instead of maintaining safe distance, they moved toward danger. Rather than avoiding threats, they sought engagement. Their methods appeared reckless, bordering on suicidal according to standard assessment criteria. Yet the results were undeniable. Lower casualty rates, faster adaptation, deeper environmental understanding. The data contradicted their most fundamental beliefs about risk management. Their entire scientific framework faced challenge. Centuries of research methodology assumed that careful observation produced the best data. Human success suggested direct interaction yielded superior results. The Council's protocols seemed increasingly obsolete as evidence accumulated. Restrictive safety measures now appeared to hinder, rather than help scientific progress. This realization created professional turmoil among seasoned researchers. Their own curiosity battled against ingrained caution daily. They wanted to understand the human methods but feared protocol violation consequences. Each new success from Nexus 9 widened the gap between expectation and reality. The cognitive strain affected decision-making at all levels. Junior researchers questioned senior analysts about the conflicting data. Standard answers about safety protocols sounded increasingly hollow against demonstrable results. The turning point came during the hive-mind interaction. Traditional protocols demanded complete avoidance of collective consciousness entities. Human methods achieved peaceful communication, where others had failed. The observers watched them establish dialogue with what should have been an unstoppable threat. This final evidence proved too compelling to ignore. Their professional integrity demanded they acknowledge what the data showed. They chose evidence over training despite the career risks. Senior analysts override standard reporting protocols. They filed preliminary assessments that contradicted established doctrine. This professional gamble could have ended their careers. Council regulations punished protocol violation harshly regardless of results. They proceeded because the scientific evidence left no other honest choice. This decision led to the most significant discovery in centuries. The communication framework humans had developed revealed universal patterns across species. These elements allowed understanding where translation had previously failed. The observers realized they had been missing fundamental aspects of interspecies communication. Their caution had prevented them from seeing what humans discovered through engagement. The cognitive shift required complete methodological overhaul. They abandoned pure observation in favor of balanced interaction. Risk assessment incorporated potential gains alongside possible losses. Safety protocols allowed calculated experimentation within controlled parameters. This transformation produced better science across multiple research domains. The institutional change validated their difficult choice. What began as professional risk became standard practice. Their willingness to embrace contradictory evidence advanced galactic science dramatically. The communication framework they helped develop connected thousands of previously isolated species. This discovery reshaped interstellar relations fundamentally. The observers learned that sometimes protocols must yield to evidence. Their cognitive dissonance became the catalyst for progress. The gap between expectation and reality forced necessary evolution. Science advanced because they chose truth over tradition when confronted with undeniable proof. This lesson would influence research methodology for centuries to come. Humans treated failure not as disaster, but as information gathering. Each dangerous encounter underwent careful planning and documentation before execution. Field teams mapped exposure scenarios with precise risk thresholds. Medical personnel stood ready with specific countermeasures for anticipated reactions. The process followed strict protocols despite its apparent recklessness. Every movement, every reaction, every physiological response was recorded in real time. The boundary between calculated risk and genuine recklessness remained deliberately unclear to observers. Humans operated within safety margins that other species considered suicidal. Their tolerance for controlled danger appeared excessive by galactic standards. Yet their methods showed consistent results that cautious approaches failed to achieve. The thin line they walked produced valuable data where safer methods yielded little. This operational philosophy required absolute discipline and precise execution. Their response protocols involved immediate medical intervention and thorough analysis. Field medics administered targeted treatments within seconds of exposure. Biological samples were collected during and after each incident. The team documented subjective experiences alongside objective measurements. This comprehensive data collection turned each encounter into a learning opportunity. Failure became a source of valuable information rather than danchundakorja. Iterative improvements emerged from each incident's lessons. Safety protocols updated daily based on new evidence. Equipment modifications addressed identified vulnerabilities. Team training incorporated recent experience into standard procedures. This continuous improvement cycle accelerated their adaptation rate dramatically. Each controlled failure produced knowledge that enhanced future operations. The process represented systematic learning through managed experience. The model generated faster environmental mastery than cautious approaches. Teams developed intuitive understanding through direct engagement. Their knowledge came from lived experience rather than theoretical study. This practical wisdom allowed them to anticipate dangers and opportunities alike. Their adaptation speed surprised even the most optimistic observers. What appeared chaotic actually followed a disciplined learning methodology. Safety protocols evolved in real time based on empirical evidence. Teams adjusted risk thresholds as their understanding improved. Medical responses became more precise with each exposure event. Equipment modifications addressed specific challenges encountered in the field. This dynamic approach kept pace with rapidly changing conditions. Static safety manuals were replaced by living documents that updated constantly. The system remained responsive to new information and emerging threats. This operational philosophy demanded high initial risk tolerance. Early stages involved greater danger as teams learned environmental basics. The approach required accepting short-term increased risk for long-term safety gains. Teams maintained this balance through careful planning and rapid response capabilities. Their confidence grew as the methodology proved effective across multiple scenarios. The initial dangerous period yielded disproportionate knowledge returns that later paid safety dividends. Controlled failure produced superior long-term safety outcomes compared to avoidance strategies. Teams that engaged carefully with dangers developed deeper understanding and better preparedness. Their incident rates dropped below those of cautious observers within weeks. This counterintuitive result challenged conventional safety doctrines. The approach demonstrated that some risks were worth taking when managed properly. Safety through understanding proved more effective than safety through distance. Learning through managed danger became humanity's most valuable contribution to galactic operations. Their methods spread across multiple research and exploration divisions. Other species adopted modified versions of the controlled failure model. The approach produced better results where cautious methods had stalled. This operational philosophy transformed how the galaxy approached unknown environments. The willingness to accept limited risk for greater knowledge became standard practice. Humanity's greatest export wasn't technology, but a methodology for turning danger into understanding. Torque's final assessment framed humans not as explorers or colonists, but as galactic transformers. His report cataloged their operational methods with clinical precision, while acknowledging the profound philosophical shift they represented. The analysis provoked ongoing ethical debates across multiple council sessions. Conservative factions raised valid concerns about risk management and consent protocols. They questioned whether the potential knowledge gain justified the dangers involved. These concerns reflected centuries of cautious diplomatic tradition. Risk assessment remained a primary concern despite demonstrable success. The human approach involved calculated dangers that other species found unacceptable. Consent issues emerged regarding interactions with non-sentient or collective consciousnesses. Unintended consequences required continuous monitoring across all contact scenarios. These concerns reflected legitimate philosophical differences about appropriate engagement boundaries. The debates would continue for years as the methods spread across the galaxy. Yet the results proved undeniable across every measurable metric. Safety records showed consistent improvement despite increased engagement levels. Communication success rates exceeded previous benchmarks dramatically. Knowledge acquisition accelerated beyond all predictions. The evidence overwhelmed theoretical objections through sheer practical success. Even the most cautious observers acknowledged the effectiveness of human methods. Humans became essential communicators across diverse intelligences. Their unique skill set filled a critical gap in galactic operations. They operated where translation systems and traditional diplomacy failed. Their value lay in bridging understanding gaps rather than technological superiority. This positioning made them acceptable to even the most isolationist species. They facilitated connections that had previously seemed impossible. The galaxy adapted to their model of inquiry and cooperation. Old protocols gave way to more dynamic engagement frameworks. Risk assessment incorporated potential gains alongside possible losses. Safety measures balanced protection with exploration needs. The entire approach to unknown environments underwent fundamental revision. This transformation occurred through practical demonstration rather than theoretical argument. Enlightenment came through bold collaborative dialogue rather than cautious observation. Species discovered that some risks yielded disproportionate rewards. Understanding others required shared experience beyond data exchange. The human emphasis on mutual benefit created stable partnerships across biological divides. Their methods produced lasting connections where force or avoidance had failed. Protocols evolved to accommodate their unique operational approach. The Council established new frameworks for controlled risk scenarios. Research divisions developed engagement training programs. Diplomatic teams incorporated communication specialists as standard components. These changes reflected the practical value of human methods across multiple domains. The transformation represented maturity rather than abandonment of safety principles. The galaxy would never be the same after humans joined the community. Their influence extended beyond practical methods to philosophical shifts. Danger became something to understand rather than simply avoid. Risk assessment incorporated potential gains alongside possible losses. Communication became the primary tool for handling unknown quantities. This fundamental rewiring affected how countless species approached exploration and contact. The Galactic Council declared humans would go extinct on Nexus 9 within weeks. They were wrong. Watch what happens when a lone xenobiologist walks into the territory of the planet's deadliest predator and says, "Hello, beautiful," instead of running. What she does next will rewrite every first contact protocol in the galaxy. The United Galactic Research Division had models for Death World colonization failure. They were precise, proven across multiple species and environments. Their prediction for the humans was absolute. Total extinction by apex predators within weeks. No margin for error, no statistical outliers. The Council's long-range sensors detected Maya Patel moving toward known hunter territory. The observers prepared their recording equipment. Standard procedure for documenting extinction events. Their initial biological assessment noted human fragility. Thin skin, minimal natural armor, slow reaction times compared to native species. Previous colonization attempts by other races ended the same way. The Cathar lasted 8 days. The Velnaxians managed 12 before their last transmission cut off. Council protocols strictly forbade intervention during observed extinctions. Non-interference was the cornerstone of their research ethics. They activated full-spectrum recording as Maya entered the designated kill zone. Thermal audio-biological readings all streaming to the orbital observation post. The striped hunters emerged from the undergrowth. Triple the human's mass. Claws capable of shredding composite armor. Standard predator behavior dictated immediate attack response. Maya didn't run. She didn't assume defensive posture. She stood still while the creatures approached. This violation of ecological expectations forced a system override. Research priority alerts flashed across every console. The lead observer requested confirmation from 3 separate analysts. All confirmed the anomaly. No species had ever shown this behavior pattern. The human was either making a catastrophic error or operating on unknown principles. Recording systems automatically shifted to maximum resolution, capturing every micro-expression, every subtle muscle movement. The hunters circled Maya, their movements fluid and predatory. She maintained eye contact without aggression. Her breathing remained steady according to bioreadouts. Heart rate elevated but controlled, not the panic response every previous subject had displayed. The lead observer ordered all other monitoring operations suspended. This single encounter demanded full attention. They watched as she slowly extended her hand, palm open and empty. The dominant hunter sniffed the air, massive head tilted in assessment. Every previous encounter had ended at this point with immediate lethal force. The creature took another step forward, close enough to strike. Maya didn't flinch. She spoke words too soft for the audio pickups to capture clearly. The research team scrambled to enhance the audio feed. They cross-referenced with human language databases while keeping visual tracking active. The lead observer made the call to remain strictly observational, despite the unprecedented nature of the event. Protocol demanded they record without influencing the outcome. But for the first time in their careers, they were watching something that shouldn't be possible according to all established models of interspecies interaction. The hunters didn't attack. They maintained their circling pattern, but without the aggressive posturing typically seen before a kill. Maya remained still, her posture open and non-threatening. The observers noted the absence of defensive weapons or protective gear. Standard human exploration kit, but nothing rated for this level of threat. Either extreme foolishness or calculated risk-taking on a scale no other species had attempted. The research override triggered automatic data prioritization across the entire division. Every available processing unit began analyzing the feed, comparing it to thousands of previous first contact scenarios. No matches found. The system flagged this as a potential paradigm shift event, the highest possible research priority. All previous assumptions about human capabilities required immediate reevaluation. Maya Patel's first words defied 4 centuries of interspecies protocol. The creature facing her had eliminated 7 other survey team members. Cathar, Velnaxian, even a heavily armored Grelidian security officer. All experienced xenobiologists with full tactical gear, all dead within seconds of encounter. Standard predator assessment showed lethal intent probability at 98%. Instead of assuming defensive posture, Maya kept her hands visible and relaxed. She spoke in soft, measured tones that the audio enhancers finally captured. "Hello, beautiful." Not a threat display. Not a submission gesture. A simple greeting directed at an apex killer. The observers checked their translation matrices 3 times. No error. The human was complimenting the creature that should have been tearing her apart. The predator's response defied classification. No immediate attack. No defensive crouch. It tilted its massive head, nostrils flaring as it sampled her scent. The striped hide rippled with muscle tension, but without aggression patterns. Maya slowly reached into her field pouch. Every observer held their breath. Drawing a weapon would mean instant death. The creature's reaction time was faster than any human movement. She extracted a sealed nutrient bar, synthetic protein compound developed for cross-species consumption, broke it in half and placed 1 piece on the ground between them. Prey species don't offer food to predators. The behavior had no precedent in the Galactic database. The mother hunter sniffed the offering, then made a low rumbling sound that didn't match any known threat vocalization. Their sensors swept for pheromone controls. Hidden technologies, any explanation? Nothing, clean readings across all spectra. The human was doing this with words and gestures alone. Then the cubs emerged from the dense foliage. 2 juvenile predators following their mother's scent trail. Standard models predicted immediate maternal aggression toward any potential threat near offspring. The mother hunter glanced at her cubs, then back at Maya. The human remained perfectly still, making no sudden movements. The cubs approached the food offering curiously. Maya didn't retreat. She watched them with what the expression analysts later classified as professional curiosity, mixed with appreciation. Not fear, not dominance. Something entirely new. The mother made another rumbling sound, this one clearly directed at her offspring. The cubs backed away from the food without eating it. Protocol violation upon protocol violation. Predators don't regulate their young's feeding behavior in threat situations. The mother then did something that made 3 observers request immediate system diagnostics. She stepped forward and nudged Maya's outstretched hand with her massive head. Not a testing bite, not an aggressive move. A gentle contact that left the human unharmed. The force sensors registered minimal pressure, less than 1% of biting capacity. Maya responded by slowly raising her other hand and placing it on the creature's shoulder. Direct physical contact with a known killer. The entire observation post went silent. Every screen showed the impossible scene. Human and predator standing together as the cubs watched curiously. The mother made a contented-sounding rumble that vibrated through the audio pickups. Maya remained calm, her bio readouts showing elevated but controlled responses. Not the panic spike every previous subject had displayed. This single gesture forced immediate recalibration of all human threat assessment models. The Council's entire framework for first contact protocols became instantly obsolete. They weren't watching another extinction event. They were witnessing the beginning of something the galaxy had never seen before. A Deathworld predator choosing communication over carnage. Dr. Aaron Burke approached the neurotoxic plant cluster with what appeared to be suicidal intent. The observers tracked his movements through multiple sensor layers. Known contact fatalities included 3 Velnaxian researchers and 1 Cathar security officer. The plant's defense mechanism released airborne compounds that induced paralysis, followed by respiratory failure. Standard protocol demanded full environmental suits and remote sampling. Burke wore minimal protective gear and carried handheld instruments. His team maintained observation from a cleared perimeter. They had medical equipment ready but made no move to intervene. The lead observer noted their calm professionalism despite the apparent risk. Burke collected a leaf sample using bare hands. Direct skin contact with the toxic surface. Immediate physiological reactions began within seconds. Elevated heart rate, pupil dilation, minor muscle tremors. The human team recorded every data point with clinical precision. They documented response timelines, symptom progression, and recovery markers. Burke remained conscious throughout the exposure, maintaining verbal communication with his team. His speech patterns showed slight deterioration but stayed coherent. After precisely 90 seconds, medical personnel administered a counteragent through a field injector. Immediate stabilization of vital signs followed. The team collected blood samples and tissue scans while Burke described his subjective experience. This pattern repeated across multiple hazardous species. Acidic fungi, venomous insects, predatory flora. Each encounter followed the same structured approach. Controlled exposure, detailed monitoring, immediate intervention, thorough analysis. The observers noted the humans operated with clearly defined risk thresholds. They pushed boundaries but never crossed into certain fatality zones. Their methodology blended apparent recklessness with rigorous scientific discipline. The team's data collection focused on adaptation potential rather than simple avoidance. They measured toxin tolerance buildup across repeated exposures. Minor reactions became less severe with each controlled test. Immune response markers showed progressive adaptation. The humans were essentially building biological resistance through calculated risk-taking. Their approach treated planetary dangers as problems to solve rather than threats to avoid. This operational philosophy defied all standard research protocols. Galactic science emphasized containment and protection. The human method embraced managed danger as a learning tool. Their injury statistics showed an interesting pattern. Initial higher incident rates followed by rapid decline. The controlled failure model produced better long-term survival outcomes than cautious approaches. They learned faster by experiencing limited consequences. The observers recalculated their risk assessment models based on this new data. Human fragility metrics required complete revision. Their biological adaptability exceeded previous estimates by several orders of magnitude. The team's medical interventions demonstrated advanced understanding of xenobiological systems. Their counteragents worked where standard treatments had failed for other species. This became their standard operating procedure for planetary adaptation. Systematic exposure building to comprehensive immunity. Each team member underwent similar conditioning protocols. They developed personalized response profiles based on individual biological factors. The process appeared brutal to outside observers, but yielded measurable results. Within weeks, the human team moved through previously lethal environments with minimal protection. Their methods represented a fundamental shift in Deathworld colonization strategy. Instead of creating sterile safe zones, They adapted to the environment itself. The controlled failure model became their most valuable asset. It allowed rapid acquisition of practical survival knowledge no remote scanning could provide. They turned danger into data through carefully managed risk acceptance. Maya's interactions with the Hunter family transitioned from chance encounters to structured research. The human science team established formal protocols for these exchanges. They designated specific clearing areas as meeting points with clear sightlines and multiple escape routes. Each location was chosen for mutual security and minimal territorial conflict. The team developed standardized offering packages, nutritionally balanced supplements tailored to predator physiology. They created communication markers using natural materials that both species could recognize. The mother hunter began arriving at designated coordinates with her cubs, punctual, consistent, and observant of the established boundaries. She would approach the clearing edge and wait for human acknowledgement before proceeding. The cubs learned to remain at a respectful distance until invited forward. This pattern development occurred within days rather than the projected months. The predators demonstrated clear understanding of the interaction framework. Reciprocal benefits emerged almost immediately. The hunters received high-calorie food supplements that reduced their hunting time and energy expenditure. The humans provided early warning of larger territorial predators moving through the area. They shared information about water source contamination and seasonal migration patterns. The hunting family's survival metrics improved significantly. Lower injury rates, better cub development, increased territorial control. Human gains were equally measurable. The predators became effective early warning systems against more dangerous species. They provided hunting assistance with larger game that single humans couldn't handle alone. The shared territory became a secure zone other predators avoided. Resource gathering efficiency increased by 40% within the protected area. Casualty rates dropped to near zero within the cooperation zone. This cooperation defied every ecological model in the galactic database. Predator-prey relationships weren't supposed to develop mutual benefits. The Council's assumption of mindless predation collapsed under observable evidence. These were intelligent creatures capable of weighing costs and benefits. They recognized improved survival odds through cooperation rather than conflict. The binary classification of friend or foe proved inadequate for describing the relationship. Social intelligence emerged through structured interaction. The hunters developed distinct communication signals for different threat levels. They learned to distinguish between human team members and responded differently to each. The cubs showed play behavior toward familiar humans, while maintaining cautious distance with newcomers. This cognitive development occurred within a framework that encouraged cross-species understanding rather than simple domination. The bonding experiment progressed at unprecedented speed. Within 3 weeks, the hunters were accompanying human survey teams as security escorts. They recognized and responded to basic gesture commands. The humans learned to interpret predator body language and vocalizations with increasing accuracy. Both species developed a working vocabulary of cross-species signals. This wasn't trained behavior but evolved communication based on mutual need. The observation team documented every interaction with growing astonishment. Their predictive models had to be rewritten daily. The rate of relationship development exceeded all previous interspecies contact scenarios. What should have taken years of careful conditioning was happening organically through shared practical need. The hunters weren't being trained. They were participating willingly in a partnership that served their interests. This cooperative framework challenged centuries of ecological theory. Predators weren't mindless killing machines, but opportunistic survivalists. Given a better option than constant conflict, they chose cooperation. The humans had provided that option through careful observation and respectful engagement. They treated the hunters as potential partners rather than threats to eliminate. This fundamental shift in approach yielded results that cautious observation alone could never achieve. The experiment demonstrated that social structures could cross species boundaries when built on mutual benefit. The hunters protected their human allies because it served their survival interests. The humans provided resources and security that improved predator quality of life. This reciprocal arrangement created a stable interspecies community where both thrived. The model suggested that cooperation might be a more effective survival strategy than domination across multiple death world environments. The Valaxian observation team's camouflage field was rated undetectable to all known sensor technologies. Multispectral distortion, thermal masking, and acoustic dampening made them effectively invisible. Standard operating procedure required maintaining a safe observation distance. The team lead authorized a closer position against protocol. They wanted clearer audio of the human-predator interactions. Their new position placed them within visual range of the main clearing. Maya Patel was conducting a scheduled resource exchange with the Hunter family. She placed nutrient blocks at the designated spot while the cubs watched from the perimeter. The mother hunter remained alert but relaxed. Maya completed the exchange ritual and stood slowly. She turned toward the concealed observation post and looked directly at their position. Not a glancing survey of the area. A focused gaze right through their camouflage field. She smiled. A calm, knowing expression that conveyed recognition without threat. The observation team froze. Their systems showed no field degradation or equipment malfunction. The camouflage remained active across all spectra. Maya's gaze held for 3 full seconds before she turned back to the hunters. She made a deliberate hand gesture that clearly indicated she knew they were being watched. The team lead ordered immediate system diagnostics. All equipment registered optimal function. They reviewed previous days' footage with enhanced analysis. The evidence was undeniable. Maya had been subtly acknowledging their presence for days. Small gestures, brief glances, even adjusting her position to give them better observation angles. The humans had known about their observers the entire time. This reversal of surveillance dynamics created system-wide alerts. The observers had become the observed. Their technology assessment required complete revision. Human sensory capabilities exceeded all known parameters. They could detect advanced camouflage that had worked against every other species. Centuries of covert observation protocols became instantly obsolete. The entire premise of undetected research collapsed in one casual smile. Maya completed her interaction with the hunters and began walking toward their position. She moved with deliberate calm, not directly at them but on an intercept course. The observation team debated withdrawal but held position. Protocol demanded they maintain cover until confirmed detection. Maya stopped 20 meters from their concealed location. She spoke clearly without raising her voice. "I assume you're recording this. My name is Dr. Maya Patel, lead xenobiologist for the Nexus 9 research team. We've been aware of your presence since landing. Your surveillance technology is impressive but not perfect. We'd prefer to communicate directly if you're willing." She waited calmly while the observation team processed the breach. Their entire operational framework was designed around remaining undetected. First contact protocols assumed the observing species controlled the revelation timing. The humans had flipped that dynamic completely. They'd allowed the observation to continue while gathering their own intelligence. The team lead made the decision to maintain cover a moment too long. Maya smiled again and made a specific hand gesture toward the tree line. A human technical team emerged from concealed positions around the observation post. They'd established their own perimeter surveillance without detection. The observers were surrounded by the species they were supposed to be monitoring. Maya stepped forward into full view, her posture open and non-threatening. She introduced each member of her team by name and specialty. She described their observation methods and timeline with precise accuracy. They knew the observation post's technical specifications, shift patterns, even individual researcher specialties. The humans had been studying their observers with the same intensity applied to the native species. First contact occurred not as a controlled revelation, but as a mutual acknowledgement. The humans initiated it on their terms after thorough preparation. They demonstrated superior situational awareness while avoiding hostile posturing. This approach shattered centuries of galactic diplomatic tradition. The observers had no protocol for being the less informed party during first contact. Their entire operational manual required immediate revision. Commander Plux watched the live feed from Nexus 9 with growing professional conflict. Council policy was absolute. No direct interaction with observed species. Violation meant career termination and possible reassignment to deep space monitoring. The regulations existed for good reason. Premature contact had caused catastrophic cultural contamination in 7 documented cases. The rules were written in blood and institutional memory. The research value staring back at him from the screens outweighed centuries of caution. The humans had achieved in 3 weeks what other species failed to accomplish in decades. Their survival statistics showed a curious inversion of expected patterns. Increased risk exposure led to improved safety metrics. They turned danger into data through calculated engagement. Their controlled failure model produced better outcomes than cautious avoidance ever could. Plux reviewed the team's unanimous assessment. Every senior researcher supported limited cooperation. Their arguments were methodical and evidence-based. The humans already knew about their observers. Continuing the deception served no scientific purpose. Direct interaction could yield unprecedented cross-species research data. The potential knowledge loss from maintaining distance outweighed protocol violation risks. He examined the human team's safety records. Their injury rates had dropped 70% since initial landing. They moved through lethal environments with confidence born of practical experience. Their adaptation speed exceeded all predictive models. They learned faster by doing rather than observing. This challenged fundamental research methodologies across multiple disciplines. The commander considered the implications. Authorizing contact meant bypassing 13 security protocols. It required overriding 7 automated reporting systems. The decision would trigger immediate alerts at Council headquarters. He'd have 48 standard hours to justify his actions before disciplinary proceedings began. The time frame was deliberate, enough time to prove value or demonstrate recklessness. His team prepared the Alpha 3 override package. It included full environmental isolation protocols, communication boundaries, and emergency withdrawal procedures. They established clear research parameters for the interaction. Limited information exchange, no technology sharing, structured observation periods. Every aspect was designed to minimize contamination while maximizing scientific yield. Plux reviewed the final authorization screen. His security clearance flashed approval pending command confirmation. The system reminded him of potential consequences 3 times. Career termination, reassignment, possible diplomatic repercussions. The humans on screen continued their work, unaware they were the subject of such high-stakes deliberation. Their casual competence made the decision both easier and harder. He input his command codes with deliberate precision. The system registered the Alpha 3 override at 1432 station time. Immediate alerts flashed across multiple Council monitoring stations. The research team activated their prepared protocols without hesitation. They established secure communication channels with the human team. First contact protocols shifted from observation to interaction in under 3 minutes. The initial exchange was structured and professional. Both sides maintained appropriate boundaries while sharing basic information. The humans revealed how they detected the observation post. Simple atmospheric distortion analysis combined with pattern recognition software. Their methods were elegant in their simplicity. The observers had overestimated their technological advantage. This decision would eventually rewrite interstellar contact guidelines. The 48-hour window yielded more valuable data than years of remote observation. Human research methods complemented traditional approaches rather than replacing them. Their risk-tolerant curiosity provided insights cautious observation could never capture. The controlled interaction model became the new standard for first contact scenarios. Plux watched the first direct exchange with professional satisfaction. The humans were precise, respectful, and intensely curious. They asked better questions than most seasoned researchers. Their approach blended scientific rigor with practical adaptability. The potential value was immediately apparent even to the most cautious observers. The career risk suddenly seemed worth taking for the knowledge gain. Dr. Lena Novak sat across from the observation team with the tired confidence of someone who'd survived multiple Death World postings. She explained their operational mindset without dramatic emphasis. Simple, brutal clarity. Assume everything is trying to kill you until proven otherwise. Then figure out why and change that dynamic if possible. This philosophy treated danger as raw data, rather than pure threat. Every lethal encounter became a learning opportunity. Their approach integrated multiple research disciplines from the start. Botanical analysis informed zoological assessments. Animal behavior patterns suggested xenopsychic possibilities. They didn't study threats in isolation but as interconnected systems. A poisonous plant might indicate predator hunting patterns. Predator behavior could reveal environmental stresses. Everything connected in a complex survival matrix they needed to decode quickly. Flexible safety protocols evolved from each encounter. Standard operating procedures updated daily based on new data. They maintained core security boundaries but adjusted response parameters constantly. What worked yesterday might not work tomorrow. Adaptation wasn't optional. It was their primary survival mechanism. Each team member contributed to protocol development based on their specific experiences. They pursued discovery without exploitation as a core principle. Resource gathering followed strict sustainability guidelines. They took only what they needed and often gave back more. The observation team noted their ethical consistency across all interactions. They treated the environment as a partner rather than a resource to consume. This surprised observers who expected ruthless expansion from a death world species. Risk assessment and knowledge acquisition became inseparable functions. They didn't calculate danger in isolation from potential gains. Each risk was weighed against possible information value. Controlled exposures were carefully calibrated to maximize learning while minimizing real danger. Their methods required precise judgment calls in high-pressure situations. Mistakes meant injury or death, but inaction meant slower adaptation. Their approach produced faster environmental mastery than cautious observation. While other species built secure compounds and studied from behind barriers, the humans learned through direct engagement. They developed intuitive understanding that remote scanning could never provide. Practical experience trumped theoretical knowledge at every turn. The observation team watched their confidence grow with each successful interaction. Dr. Novak described their decision-making process with clinical precision. They maintained multiple contingency plans for every operation. Each team member knew exactly when to withdraw and when to push forward. Their communication protocols ensured constant situational awareness. Nobody operated in isolation despite their individual responsibilities. The system was designed to catch errors before they became catastrophes. The observers noted how their methods complemented traditional research rather than replacing it. They still used scanners and sensors but combined them with hands-on experience. Technology provided data, direct engagement provided understanding. The combination proved more effective than either approach alone. Their adaptation speed increased exponentially as these methods integrated. This operational philosophy extended to their interactions with the observation team itself. They'd studied their observers with the same systematic approach applied to native species, learned their patterns, capabilities, and limitations, developed communication strategies based on observed behavior. Their first contact preparation mirrored their environmental adaptation methods. Assume potential threat, gather data, establish communication. The human team's entire methodology revolved around transforming unknown quantities into manageable variables. They refused to accept permanent barriers between species or environments. Every division was merely a communication problem waiting for a solution. This mindset allowed them to achieve in weeks what took others years. Their greatest weapon wasn't technology or strength, but relentless curiosity paired with calculated courage. Their methods would eventually influence galactic research protocols fundamentally. The controlled engagement model proved more effective than strict observation across multiple metrics. Faster adaptation, deeper understanding, stronger cross-species relationships. The humans demonstrated that some risks were worth taking when approached systematically. Their philosophy reshaped how the galaxy understood first contact and death world colonization. The research teams analyzing Nexus 9 data encountered something that defied established biological principles. Their comparative analysis revealed 64 recurring patterns across every native species. These weren't genetic markers or physiological similarities. They were cognitive and behavioral elements that formed a communication substrate. The discovery challenged fundamental assumptions about interspecies barriers. Microorganisms displayed simple versions through chemical signaling. Plants showed vegetative response patterns that mirrored animal communication. Predators and prey shared surprisingly similar social interaction templates. Even the hive mind operated using variations of these core elements. The pattern suggested universal cognitive prerequisites existed across all life forms. This convergence theory indicated communication might be possible where translation had previously failed. The human team had already identified 60 of these elements through practical experimentation. They'd built their interaction protocols around pattern recognition rather than language translation. Their operational methods used rhythmic gestures, tonal variations, and spatial relationships. They treated communication as a structural framework rather than a linguistic challenge. This approach allowed them to establish basic understanding without shared vocabulary. Their field implementation demonstrated remarkable effectiveness. They used consistent light patterns for attention-getting across species. Specific sound frequencies signaled non-aggression during encounters. Touch protocols established trust through carefully calibrated pressure and duration. Even scent markers played a role in their cross-species communication system. Every interaction built upon these foundational elements. The Council's translation systems couldn't replicate this framework. Their technology focused on vocabulary and syntax mapping. It missed the underlying patterns that made communication possible. The humans had bypassed language entirely to reach understanding. Their methods worked where advanced translation algorithms failed consistently. This represented a fundamental shift in approaching interspecies communication. The universal elements included timing patterns, spatial relationships, and energy fluctuations. Response delays indicated comprehension level. Proximity adjustments signaled comfort or discomfort. Even bioelectric fields played a role in the communication matrix. The humans had learned to read and replicate these subtle signals through observation and experimentation. Their success revealed a flaw in galactic communication theory. The assumption that language was the primary barrier proved incorrect. The real challenge was recognizing and utilizing underlying cognitive patterns. Species could share understanding without sharing vocabulary or cultural references. This discovery opened possibilities previously considered impossible. The Council's research division scrambled to adapt their methodologies. They began reanalyzing centuries of first contact data using this new framework. Previously failed communication attempts showed promising patterns when examined differently. The universal elements appeared across species that had been declared fundamentally incompatible. This suggested communication might be possible far beyond previous estimates. Human field teams demonstrated practical applications daily. They established working relationships with species that had resisted all previous contact attempts. Their methods produced reliable results across diverse biological classifications. The pattern-based approach showed consistent effectiveness, where technology-intensive solutions had failed. This demonstrated that sometimes simpler methods worked better than complex systems. The discovery of universal communication elements forced a re-evaluation of intelligence assessment protocols. Communication range became a more valuable metric than technological achievement. Species previously considered primitive showed sophisticated pattern recognition abilities. The galaxy's understanding of consciousness and communication required complete revision. Humans had provided the key to unlocking connections that had remained hidden for centuries. Their practical, pattern-based approach complemented technological solutions rather than replacing them. Combined methods produced the best results across multiple contact scenarios. This integration of old and new approaches characterized the human contribution to galactic science. They didn't dismiss existing knowledge but built upon it with fresh perspectives. Their methods filled gaps that pure technology couldn't address alone. The hive mind represented a category of threat that required complete protocol redesign. Standard defense involved maximum shielding and absolute avoidance. No communication attempts, no engagement, no information exchange. The entity absorbed individual consciousness into its collective awareness. Previous encounters ended with complete mental assimilation of contact teams. 7 species had lost reconnaissance units to permanent absorption. Human response protocols developed along different lines. They analyzed absorption patterns and recognized a potential vulnerability. The hive mind sought information through assimilation. Humans proposed providing data voluntarily through structured communication. They developed cognitive dissonance-based defense systems. These created mental patterns the hive mind couldn't process efficiently. Instead of presenting a unified consciousness to absorb, they offered fragmented yet coherent information streams. They used patterned dialogue designed to be non-absorptive. Specific rhythmic structures and conceptual frameworks that resisted integration. The approach maintained individual consciousness while allowing information exchange. Drone-based remote contact established the first communication channel. Automated systems delivered the patterned messages without risk to operators. The initial transmission followed carefully designed protocols based on universal communication elements. The hive mind's response defied all previous encounters. Instead of immediate absorption attempts, it showed curiosity. The collective consciousness paused its expansion to analyze the strange communication patterns. It recognized the humans as something fundamentally different from previous contacts. Not just another species to absorb, but potential sources of novel information. The absorption impulse decreased as analytical interest increased. Human teams monitored the interaction through multiple sensor arrays. They adjusted their communication patterns in real time based on hive responses. The entity began mirroring some of their rhythmic structures. A form of cross-species communication developed without shared language or biology. The hive demonstrated capacity for learning rather than simple consumption. This represented a paradigm shift in understanding collective consciousness. The resolution came through mutual adaptation. Absorption became unnecessary when voluntary information exchange provided better results. The hive mind gained knowledge without the energy expenditure of assimilation. Humans established communication without loss of personnel. Both sides found the exchange more valuable than conflict. The entity began requesting specific information rather than attempting to take it forcibly. This interaction revealed previously unknown aspects of hive consciousness. The collective maintained individual experiences within its structure. It could recall and utilize specific knowledge from absorbed beings. Human communication methods allowed accessing this information without the dangers of direct contact. They developed safe protocols for information exchange that benefited both parties. The hive mind's preference for dialogue over conquest marked a historic shift. Previous encounters had always ended in absorption or destruction. Humans achieved peaceful contact through understanding rather than force. Their methods demonstrated that even the most alien consciousness could find common ground. The approach required careful risk management, but yielded unprecedented rewards. This success influenced galactic policy toward other collective consciousnesses. The assumption that hive minds were inevitably hostile required revision. Communication might be possible where previous attempts had failed. Human methods provided a template for future encounters with similar entities. Their risk-tolerant approach once again produced results cautious methods couldn't match. The hive mind encounter demonstrated the power of alternative strategies. Sometimes the best defense wasn't stronger shields but better communication. Understanding an opponent's motivations could transform conflict into cooperation. Humans had turned one of the galaxy's most feared threats into a valuable research partner. Their methods continued to redefine what was considered possible in interspecies relations. Maya Patel proposed the one thing no species had ever dared attempt with a hive mind: partial consciousness sharing across radically different architectures. The science team prepared emergency extraction protocols. Every historical record showed absorption probabilities above 90%. Even brief mental contact risked permanent assimilation. Maya negotiated specific boundaries with the collective entity. She defined temporal limits and content filters for the exchange. The hive mind agreed to these constraints after careful consideration of the potential knowledge gain. She entered the interface chamber with full monitoring systems active. Bioreadouts showed elevated but controlled stress responses. The hive mind established connection through patterned energy fields. Initial contact felt like sudden, overwhelming information flow. Maya maintained her mental boundaries through disciplined focus techniques. She allowed selective sharing while protecting core identity structures. The experience defied all previous descriptions of hive interaction. The collective consciousness encountered something it had never experienced: individual perspective. It perceived the world through Maya's senses while maintaining its broader awareness. This dual perception created novel cognitive patterns within the hive structure. It could compare individual experience against collective knowledge for the first time. The value of unique perspective became immediately apparent. Information gained new dimensions when filtered through singular consciousness. Maya experienced the reverse perspective: collective awareness without loss of self. She maintained her individuality while accessing the hive's vast knowledge repository. The exchange provided mutual understanding that data transmission couldn't achieve. They shared experiences rather than just information. This deep integration revealed motivations and reasoning patterns behind actions. True communication required this level of shared context. The transformation affected both parties fundamentally. The hive mind developed appreciation for individual creativity and unique perspective. It recognized that absorption destroyed the very qualities that made consciousness valuable. Maya gained understanding of collective decision-making and distributed intelligence. She saw how individual experiences enriched the whole rather than threatening it. Both emerged from the exchange with altered operational paradigms. This experience redefined the nature of interspecies interaction. Communication became about shared experience rather than data exchange. The hive mind voluntarily released consciousness fragments it had absorbed from previous encounters. This goodwill gesture demonstrated its transformed understanding of value. These released fragments contained knowledge that would have remained lost under previous protocols. The successful exchange proved that even the most alien consciousnesses could find common ground. Radical architectural differences didn't preclude meaningful connection. The key was establishing frameworks that respected both parties' fundamental nature. Maya's calculated risk produced breakthroughs that cautious approaches had failed to achieve for centuries. This interaction established new protocols for dealing with collective consciousness entities. The assumption that absorption was inevitable required complete revision. Voluntary exchange could produce better results than defensive isolation. The hive mind became a valuable research partner rather than a threat to avoid. Its unique perspective provided insights into planetary systems that individual observers missed. The consciousness-sharing experiment demonstrated humanity's core operational philosophy. They treated even the most dangerous unknowns as potential partners rather than permanent threats. Their willingness to risk personal safety for knowledge gain continued to produce unprecedented results. Each successful interaction built confidence in their methods across the galactic community. The approach that began with saying hello to tiger cubs now reached the most alien consciousness imaginable. Nexus 9's impact rippled across the galactic community with unexpected force. What began as a single settlement experiment transformed interstellar relations fundamentally. Human communication specialists became essential components in diplomatic operations. Their unique skill set filled a critical gap in cross-species negotiations. The Council's cautious protocols couldn't accommodate this rapid expansion. Their systems were designed for controlled, gradual contact. Human methods operated at a pace that overwhelmed traditional frameworks. The unified communication framework developed on Nexus 9 evolved into standard galactic interface protocols. It provided a common ground for species previously considered incompatible. Thousands of civilizations found new connection points through this system. Communication range became a primary metric for intelligence assessment. The ability to establish understanding across diverse consciousness types gained value over technological advancement. This shift recast how the galaxy measured capability and potential. Human risk-tolerant curiosity complemented existing diplomatic approaches. Their methods added dynamic engagement to measured protocols. They operated where cautious observers feared to tread. This combination produced breakthroughs in previously stagnant negotiations. Stubborn interspecies conflicts found resolution through human-mediated communication. Their fresh perspective identified solutions that traditional diplomacy had missed. Galactic governance structures adapted to incorporate these new methods. Cross-species engagement protocols underwent complete revision. The old model of careful observation gave way to active participation. Humans became indispensable translators rather than mere explorers. Their ability to bridge communication gaps made them valuable across multiple sectors. Diplomatic missions, research expeditions, and conflict resolution teams all sought human specialists. The transformation occurred through practical demonstration rather than theoretical argument. Each successful interaction built confidence in the new approach. Species that had maintained isolation for centuries began opening communications. Previously hostile relationships transitioned to cooperative agreements. The human emphasis on mutual benefit resonated across cultural boundaries. Their methods proved effective where force or avoidance had failed. This shift affected economic and scientific exchanges alongside diplomacy. Trade routes expanded between previously incompatible species. Research collaborations formed across biological divides. The entire galactic community became more interconnected and productive. Human communication specialists facilitated these connections through applied understanding of universal patterns. They operated as catalysts rather than controllers in these interactions. The galaxy permanently changed because one species refused to accept conventional limits. Their willingness to engage directly with danger produced unexpected benefits. What began as a survival strategy became a galactic asset. The methods developed through necessity proved valuable across countless scenarios. Human specialists continued pushing boundaries while maintaining ethical standards. This transformation demonstrated the power of complementary approaches. Traditional caution and calculated risk-taking worked together effectively. The galaxy gained new tools for handling complex interspecies relations. Communication became the primary focus rather than secondary consideration. Understanding others became as important as understanding technology or territory. The human impact extended beyond practical applications to philosophical shifts. Their approach challenged assumptions about risk and reward. It demonstrated that some dangers were worth facing for potential gains. This mindset influenced decision-making across multiple civilizations. The galaxy became slightly bolder in its collective approach to the unknown. Nexus 9 served as the proving ground for this new paradigm. Its success stories became case studies in galactic diplomacy training programs. The legend of the human and the tiger cub symbolized this transformative approach. It represented the power of respectful engagement over fearful avoidance. This single story encapsulated the broader shift in galactic relations. The human role evolved from newcomers to essential connectors. They didn't seek dominance but facilitation. Their value lay in bridging gaps rather than controlling territory. This positioning made them acceptable to even the most cautious species. They became the glue that held an expanding galactic community together. Their methods created stability through understanding rather than force. Maya Patel's appointment to the United Galactic Council marked a turning point in interstellar governance. As the first human representative, she brought a perspective forged in the field rather than the debate chamber. Her opening statement challenged centuries of diplomatic tradition. She advocated for direct engagement over cautious observation, framing risk as opportunity rather than threat. Conservative factions immediately opposed her approach, labeling it dangerously reckless. They cited historical precedents where premature contact caused cultural contamination. Her policy proposals drew directly from Nexus 9 field experience. Every recommendation reflected lessons learned from the Hunter family interactions. She argued that controlled engagement produced better outcomes than strict non-interference. The Council's risk assessment models required complete revision to accommodate this perspective. Traditionalists resisted each proposed change, demanding extensive impact studies and gradual implementation. Maya countered with real-time results from active field operations. Nexus 9 became the operational model for her proposals. The settlement demonstrated open, continuous experimentation could succeed where caution had failed. Its safety records showed improving metrics despite increased engagement levels. The legend of the human and the tiger cub served as powerful symbolic shorthand for this approach. It represented the potential rewards of respectful engagement with perceived threats. This narrative helped sway moderate council members who valued evidence over tradition. Torca's final assessment report provided crucial support for Maya's position. The senior analyst predicted humans would never stop reaching out to other species. Their inherent curiosity drove them toward connection rather than isolation. The report highlighted how their imperfect but persistent methods produced consistent results. Each failed attempt yielded valuable data that improved subsequent interactions. This iterative approach had transformed Nexus 9 from Death World to Research Haven. The resolution emerged through demonstrated success rather than theoretical debate. First contact protocols shifted from coercive control to collaborative exploration. New settlements adopted the Nexus 9 model of gradual, respectful engagement. Diplomatic teams incorporated human communication specialists as essential components. The entire approach to interspecies relations underwent fundamental recalibration. Safety became defined by understanding rather than avoidance. This transformation extended across all diplomatic operations. Trade negotiations incorporated mutual benefit analyses previously overlooked. Conflict resolution teams employed communication frameworks developed on Nexus 9. Even internal council procedures evolved to accommodate faster decision cycles. The human influence created more dynamic and responsive governance structures. Conservative resistance gradually diminished as results accumulated. Maya's legacy became embedded in galactic policy frameworks. Her methods proved particularly effective with previously incompatible species. The communication elements discovery allowed connections across biological divides. Hive-mind interactions demonstrated the value of shared experience over data exchange. Each success built confidence in the new approach while respecting essential safety boundaries. The systemic transformation reflected a broader philosophical shift. Danger became something to understand rather than simply avoid. Risk assessment incorporated potential gains alongside possible losses. This balanced approach produced better outcomes across multiple metrics. The galaxy became more interconnected and productive through these changes. Humanity's role evolved from newcomers to essential facilitators. They operated as bridges between species and systems. Their value lay in connection rather than control. This positioning ensured their acceptance across diverse political landscapes. The settlement on Nexus 9 had indeed birthed a new era of galactic relations. The United Galactic Research Division underwent a complete structural overhaul. This wasn't minor policy adjustment, but fundamental operational redesign. Their observation-based methodology incorporated human engagement principles at every level. Field teams received new protocols that balanced caution with controlled interaction. The changes affected research design, risk assessment, and reporting structures across all divisions. This represented the largest institutional shift in the division's 4-century history. Centuries of non-interference policy created significant implementation friction. Senior researchers raised valid concerns about contamination risks and ethical boundaries. The debate played out across multiple advisory councils and review boards. Traditionalists argued that observation provided purer data than interaction. Progressives pointed to Nexus 9's demonstrably superior results. The tension between old and new approaches created operational challenges during the transition period. Risk assessment protocols evolved to include potential gains from controlled exposure. Previously, danger was measured purely in terms of avoidance metrics. Now they calculated knowledge acquisition value against possible losses. The new model showed that some risks yielded disproportionate information returns. Safety margins became flexible based on potential scientific payoff. This required complete retraining of risk assessment teams across all field operations. Safety protocols transformed to allow calculated failure for knowledge acquisition. The old system prioritized accident prevention above all else. The new approach accepted limited failures as valuable data points. Each incident underwent thorough analysis to extract maximum learning value. Medical response teams developed rapid intervention protocols for controlled risk scenarios. The balance shifted from absolute safety to optimized learning environments. The definition of scientific progress expanded across species boundaries. Previously, research focused on single-species analysis within controlled parameters. Now studies examined interspecies relationships and communication patterns. Progress meant understanding connections rather than just cataloging differences. This broader perspective yielded insights that isolationist approaches had missed for centuries. The entire scientific methodology became more inclusive and interconnected. Researchers received comprehensive training in reciprocal engagement techniques. Field teams learned how to establish mutual benefit frameworks with native species. They practiced communication methods based on universal patterns rather than language. Safety training included protocols for controlled exposure and measured risk-taking. The curriculum emphasized adaptive response over rigid procedure following. This produced more flexible and effective field researchers. The Council's resistance gradually yielded to demonstrated results. Data from Nexus 9 and subsequent operations showed clear advantages. Engagement protocols produced better outcomes than pure observation across multiple metrics. Safety records improved despite increased interaction levels. Knowledge acquisition rates accelerated dramatically. The evidence became too compelling to ignore regardless of traditional preferences. Their legend began with a woman saying hello to tiger cubs. That single gesture symbolized the entire human approach to the unknown. Respectful engagement over fearful avoidance. Curiosity over caution when justified by potential understanding. The story captured the essence of their operational philosophy in one iconic moment. It represented the power of simple courage paired with systematic methodology. Torque's final prediction proved accurate across subsequent decades. Humans never stopped reaching out to other species. Their inherent curiosity drove them toward connection rather than isolation. Each new contact built upon previous experience while adapting to unique circumstances. Their methods continued evolving through practical application across diverse environments. The galaxy benefited from their persistent, imperfect, but effective approach to building understanding. Humanity's strength lies not in avoiding danger, but in transforming it through reciprocal engagement. Each new contact pushes the boundaries of possibility across species. Calculated risks yield profound rewards when met with curiosity and courage. The legend that began with a simple greeting to tiger cubs continues to reshape galactic diplomacy. From controlled failures to conscious bridges, humans redefine connection. Their method, observe, engage, understand, proves that the universe favors the bold, not the sheltered. Some doors open only to those willing to walk forward, not away. The galaxy expands with every hand extended in respect.